The first thing is I will start with two definitions, and then you will see only praxis situations. The first is about role, because we think coaching and organizational development has to do with two things, with role and organizational development, and the third factor will be international, and I will show you situations. It is a kind of nearly coming directly in international things. This is a typical definition of role you will other find in our, what the French call Anglo-Saxon context. And in France, role is nearly not existing in coaching, the terminus of role. It has to do with the biography of coaches. It has to do with the biography of the non-existing OD scene in France. You have no OD newspaper, for instance, no review, and so it's difficult to develop a profession where you have nearly no exchange. And this role definition at the intersection between the personal system and the organizational system is a classical role definition. You can also find others, but it's what we use. And we use it directly in our work, because we say people are used, especially leaders, are used to speak about what they do, to speak about their problems, to speak about the organizational problems. So what we try to do is to break their rituals. We think that one thing to do as the beginning of consultancy is to break the rules, if you like. It's this famous book, perhaps you know it. But what we try and do is to break the rules or to break the rituals of speaking about the organization. That's why we ask people to draw a picture showing your role as an interface between your organizational system and your personal system. It can be something like this. This is an example what somebody did, and this is another one. They are not all as beautiful as those two, I can tell you. Okay? And then we try and interpret it. I learned this thing by Burkhard Sievers and the other, one of my other teachers from Tavistock, Gordon Lawrence. Yes, I learned it from Gordon Lawrence, and we worked a lot together. We started OD in Africa. Right. Burkhard Sievers, Gordon Lawrence, and me. And we wrote articles about how we will never try again to do what we did. Okay? Because I think in our profession it's also important to write about what was not successful, not only what was successful. Otherwise we are like our clients. Okay? Okay, and we interpret it, yes, sometimes alone in coaching, sometimes in an organization. The definition of OD we use is this one. And then I stop with things like that. Those are the two fundamentals of our profession as we see it. And what we try and do every time is to bring people on working with creative things. This is an example of a cluster of German and Sri Lankan enterprises. Gitan is not here? No? Okay. They tried to define in Sri Lanka their way of working together, their way of learning from each other, and I worked together with the Sri Lankan colleagues for years in this process, which means I took the plane, I stayed 2-3 weeks in Sri Lanka. It depended, and sometimes it was leadership consultancy, sometimes it was deep OD. And what I try to invite people to pay attention every time is like Gitan said, try first to understand what is. Okay? And for me, part of understanding what it is to try and understand the biography of the people. And this is a leading group of this cluster of enterprises. And what is important to know is that what we started with long interviews with the responsible people of the industry, and it was fascinating what I discovered. First question, who is who? This German guy here, you see, this guy here, he is the central consultant of the Sri Lankan industry in modernization, and his last job was state secretary in the German Democratic Republic. So you meet people you do not expect in a context like this. In this situation, I've been told by the Germans when I came, first you have to go everywhere to meet every Sri Lankan industrial responsible and so on, but they are not interesting. They don't know nothing in management. You will pass a very bad time. And the first time I met, the first person I met was this person here. And when we entered his office was like an amphitheater from the Roman time. He sat down and he was phoning. And at the end, it started the usual questions. When did you arrive? How is your hotel? What are your first impressions about Sri Lanka? And also all these things. And I answered in a polite manner. And then I asked him the question, if I understand it well, you phoned in Japanese. He said, yes, in Japanese to me. Do you understand Japanese? I said, no. And I said, may I ask you a question without our dialogue of politeness, because we're supposed to work together. What did you do in Japan? He said, oh, I was professor of Kaizen in Japanese university. And I said, please allow me the next question, which is quite clear. How do you apply Kaizen in your industry you are leading? He said, oh, the first German asking me an intelligent question. It was very hard for the Germans around me. Okay? And he explained me and so on, and it was supposed to be a politeness meeting of half an hour, but it took more than 2 hours. Okay? And he said, as I understood you well, you are an old in OD. What do you do tomorrow evening? And I said, tomorrow evening there's nothing foreseen for me. He said, okay. Tomorrow evening we have a meeting about leadership in the Sri Lankan industry, and can you come and make us a presentation about leadership in Germany? I said, okay. And when I left the room, the German said, you have no time for this. I don't pay you for things like that. Okay. You can imagine who was skilled in management and not skilled in management. It was not the Sri Lankan side. This person, when I entered the room, he closed a curtain. It was the next visit. He closed the curtain, and behind the curtain there was Metaplan and flip charts. But he closed it, and it started the usual discussion. How was your trip to Germany, to Sri Lanka? How was your hotel? What are your first impressions? Blah, blah, blah. And I was more secure, and I started early with the question, can we do something else and be polite? Can we discuss about what are the main decisions we took in our professional life and why we did it? He said, oh, this is very interesting. And he started to explain that he was his last job was Human Resource Director of the Marine of Oman, as a foreign worker, if you want. And he said, my most important decision was, when should I go back to Sri Lanka? And he explained about this and so on, and he opened the curtain and he explained it on flip charts and things like that. And he said, and the German said, so now it's enough, we have to go. And this person said, no. I have a question. Tomorrow I have the steering team of the reorganization of my company. I would like to have this gentleman with me in this steering committee. And the German said, no, that's not why we pay him for. The start was difficult in Sri Lanka, believe me. Okay? And it was also not every time easy with Sri Lankan, because when you ask them to draw a picture about the organization, it ends in islands every time. Because Sri Lankan people, they think every time in island. Okay. And the next, when we started the process, I could go on with the professional life of the others, but it's enough. When we started again, a decision we made every time is to work as possible with visualization from different reasons. First, as I told you, people are used to speak about this organization problem, we solve it like this, and blah, 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 and so on. And it's more difficult with visualization. This is the German director of the cluster and the Sri Lankan director of the industrial cluster. And it's also a reason why we work with visualization, because a lot of people speak a poor English like me, and it's easier to work with visualization. And in Russia, for instance, we had a system to work with 2 cards every time. One in Russian, one in German, about the same subject, and we had a translator continuously writing in the other language the card, so that we had a complete picture. And another advantage is, as you know it, when you are skilled with Metaplan, you have at the end of the meeting, you have the minutes, and it's easier. Okay. Yes. What we also do, and we try and mount up every time constellations. And this is from Sri Lanka. This is a simple question. Where is your organization now? And when they ask me to be more precise in this question, I refuse it. Because the more I say, the more I channel the idea about the organization they're going to show us. And that's the reason why at the beginning I have only this open question. Okay? And this is, the question in this case was, please represent your organization using these figurines. Okay? And this is the organization shown by one of the directors. And the next one is the organization, the same organization in the same moment, shown by 2 female managers of the 2nd level in the hierarchy. Okay? You have never the impression you are in the same organization this day. Okay? And in this case, I was very content to have my Sri Lankan colleague, because when you show me this in a German organization, I start to work about the differences, okay? My Sri Lankan colleague took me here and said, shut up, it's my moment now. And I shut up, okay? Because I thought to discuss this in a German way, those 2 differences, in the usual way I asked, when they finished those different constellations, I asked people, what are the similarities, what are the differences, where we have to go to work, and so on. And my Sri Lankan colleague showed me in a clear way that this is not the moment. And he went on in his way to work on the differences. It was not mine. Okay?
What ways?
What did he
Yeah.
No, he didn't speak about what was on the table.
But?
He spoke about a lot of things.
Such as?
About the moon, the sun, and so on, because it was so obvious, he told me later on, that it's not possible to speak about it at the beginning. He said, this is too obvious, you can't speak about it today, you have to leave people to digest, and we can go on in the next day to speak about it, but not in front of others. He made a separate meeting between the woman on the 2nd level and the director who showed this. He made a special meeting because he said, about this you can't discuss here in front of 15 people.
So,
Yes?
Who was implied in this session, the day after?
The whole leadership of the companies, of 4 companies.
Was his intention to keep everybody safe?
No, he had another management of safety and bringing people to push.
Right.
He had another way which was not the European.
Right.
And he explained me a long time, which brings us to one of the lessons learned. If you work in such an international context, you need a lot of time to exchange with your colleague. What happened? How do you read the situation? And what could be an intervention helping the organization? You need, in comparison to a German, pure German or pure other situation, even when we work together, we need a lot of time to speak about the day, what did we see, what does it mean, and so on. And I will show you some example of Europe and Korea. And in this time it was even more difficult because we made role negotiation with a Korean colleague, but he told us there is no role negotiation in Korea, there is only the hierarchy. Okay, so in this kind of situation you have to be inventive, you have to believe in your colleague, and you have to find a skilled colleague. Do not take somebody like a so-called intercultural trainer or people like this. Forget it. Forget it. And in some countries where you don't find skilled OD people, for instance, we don't accept for the moment a contract for Spain, because I don't find any Spanish colleague I trust in working together as a consultant team, so I don't do it. Companies say, but you speak Spanish yourself. I say, yes, but it will not help me, because I can't play the Spanish role at the same time. I am a German, and in this team it's also important to be clear who is who, because you are a mirror of the intercultural conflicts of your client, and which means that you have to have a clear role and a clear position.
What were the differences emerged from these 2 representations?
These two? What we do normally is, when I start with a management group, you will see it in a few minutes. I start and I make everybody mounting a constellation, okay? And I don't tell them what is the program of the day. I ask them to accept that I have a program, but it's not the moment to speak about the program. I have a program with 3 cards: beginning, and then something like this. Yes. Okay, and meal between 12 and 2:30, which is a big fight with the Germans because they want to finish earlier and eat less or quickly. Okay, and I will explain you how we will. Okay. Let me just. Okay. What is the next one? Okay, this is how we work with a finance board of Airbus. We ask them also to make this. Okay, and I explain you how we work in a few seconds. This is one of the finance board directors, all senior vice presidents of Airbus. This is another one. You see, it's a French guy, Régis. The other was a Bavarian, Karl-Heinz. Okay.
Why you see that?
Huh?
Why you see that? French or Bavarian?
No, because I worked with those people, so I know that key H was Karl-Heinz, a Bavarian.
Okay, Karl-Heinz, okay.
Yes. Régis is a French guy. Jacques also is not a Chinese one. Bruno is also French. Abdel is a French citizen, but one of the richest guy of Morocco, but member of the board, which is also important to know because he has a different role and he's very rich. He could give us his job very easily because he don't need his job, except to show to his family that he is also somebody important in the European system, but for money he doesn't need it. Okay, this is Roland, Bavarian too, because Germans they send every time Bavarians. Yes, which is very funny but this is a lot of. No, but it starts, for instance, this meeting started in Toulouse, in one of the best hotels in the south of France. And the Germans came early, the Bavarians, and the Bavarians said in a deep Bavarian, spoke to each other, and they said, we have to tell them again that we are vegetarian. I asked him why. Because they bring us every time meat which is not cooked. So every time when we are in France, we say we are vegetarian. So, okay, then came the British, and the Bavarian said, you are now on post in Toulouse, and how long will you stay before you go back to Great Britain? And the Brits said, never we go back to Great Britain. We are 100 kilometers from the Mediterranean Sea, 120 from the Atlantic, the Pyrenees are very near. Do you think we go back to Great Britain? Never in our life we go back to Great Britain. The Bavarians were very... Now it's funny because when you hear these conversations, it has an influence on what happens in the group. Okay, this is a British guy. No, this is the Norwegian in the group, and this is the Brits. Okay, and I start. Pedro is the Spanish one. Okay, Geoffrey is the Australian. He's the boss of this group. I ask him every time, why do you take me as a consultant with my horrible English? He says, okay, at least the French and the Spanish guy, they understand you. When I take a native speaker, they sleep after a quarter of an hour because they give it up to understand. Okay? So, after this all, how we work is that we don't ask people to explain what they show. We make a kind of what we in art we would call it vernissage. We go around and we ask the others, what do you see here? Okay? And then we start
the same organization.
Yes,
it's a group.
It's a management board. It's a finance board. Okay. It's a finance board of a big company. It's extremely.
Each other they give feedback in a way.
They gave a kind of feedback, but sometimes I'm obliged to speak to make an exercise what is feedback before this year. For instance, I work in Brussels for an international group of young people, old people, doctorat d'état of political science and so on. And because they are only used to work alone for thesis and university, we have been obliged to work with them first what is feedback. Okay, with those people, no, because they are very intelligent and very serious people, extremely serious people. Finance. Okay. And the question we ask is, what did you see? So we make a tour around the table. It takes, with 8 persons, it takes 1.5 hours. Yes. Yes, because it's the first, because people are not used to try and understand each other's. It's the first step of OD, if you want. Because it's the first occasion they have to try and understand what is really the other person, what is his or her thinking in management. And then, what did you see? With cards or on a flip chart. What are the same? What is the same? What are the differences? On which difference should we work? Okay, and what astonished you is also one of my favorite questions. And from those questions we develop the program of the day. Okay, not from a program predefined by me or okay. And
excuse me, do you allow the people to comment their feedback?
Yes, yes, I do.
So it's kind of a dialogue.
It's a kind of dialogue. But I have another step I don't know if I have time to show you. We have a special unit on feedback. We have a kind of matrix, I can tell you because I have not the time to show it. We have a kind of matrix in which, I did it also with this group, it took half a day, no, more than half a day. A matrix, let's say I call one Pedro and the other one Jacques, okay? The question is, in English, what should Pedro do more? What should Pedro do less? What do you do? No, how do you perceive the difficulties of the job of Pedro? what do you do to help Pedro to be more successful? What do you expect from Pedro to be, what do you expect as a help, or as a, help is perhaps not the bad word in English, the best word, that you need to Pedro to be better in your job. And this we make it as a matrix. Yes, as a matrix with the older people, it takes time. And then, linked to your question of feedback a little, we propose in this case to say, take the most difficult card you received. Okay, for instance, you take the most difficult card you received. Take the guy who sent you this card. You too, you sit in the middle, and I help you as a coach to discuss what is written on this card. Because it makes another kind, it helps them to install another culture of dialogue. Okay? Okay, and the next one is, okay, after this thing, I asked people to produce in common the ideal organization of finance to develop it together. And then starts an interesting process. Who takes the lead in this work? It's the first question for me. Is it the boss? Is it somebody else? And I can tell you, once in Airbus, when we came back from Hamburg to Toulouse in the plane, the French director said to a young French guy, "La prochaine fois tu fermeras ta gueule." C'est pas parce que, I will translate it. C'est pas parce que c'était, pas pour toi, je sais. C'est pas parce que c'est en anglais que tu as la grande gueule. C'est moi le chef. Okay? Which showed the French high boss said to his young guy, "Next time you shut up your mouth. Because it's not because your English is better than mine that you you make people thinking that you are the boss." Okay? Which means the production process is as interesting as a result of the ideal organization. Okay? And you can also see when if the boss jumps in and starts the first and so on. Okay?
Michael, and then you come back after some time?
Yes, every time. It's one step.
This is one
No,
step.
with the finance board I worked for 3 years.
Okay.
It's an OD process, it's not a... Okay. And what I do every time also in my contract is every time when we are 3 days in a workshop with the team, there's every time 1 day of exploitation of the workshop with the boss. Okay? How I saw his role, I make coaching with him. What was your role in this process? How I saw you? What do you think about the team? And so on. Okay, it's a process. It's not a one-night stand. Okay, and we work with this thing in other contexts. This is that's a very interesting thing. It was with in Africa with the kind of African European Union. They have also a kind of African Union. And I worked with them. This is a session in Ouagadougou where I lived 5 years, but this is another story. And I had a consultancy contract with the African Economic Union, and there were people from 14, 15 countries. And I made OD with them. How can you organize this? It was very difficult for those people. But they are very engaged working and. But I think I have colleagues who try to do things like that, wooden pieces and so on. It did not work. It depends also on your standing and how you can convince people to do this. If you say, I would suggest you perhaps to work with wooden pieces and so on, you are lost. Okay, you have to define it as a credible approach of OD. Okay, and you have to have an OD contract and not a PP contract about training. Okay. Okay, this is our approach of project coaching. It's published, and you can find it, all those things on our website. Okay, because we try to work in an integrated way. Okay. Something came from some experiences. For instance, we have, according to our experience, this is one of the reasons why this intercultural thing is only partly possible to use. When you have an engineer in an international project, he has a loyalty to his profession, he has a loyalty to his site, he has a loyalty to his project, and all those things are difficult and are working in him. Okay, that's why when people say intercultural, and you say, okay, if you have only a hammer, you see only some nails. Okay, that's why we work only with people with a coaching and OD real identity, and not with intercultural trainers or people. Okay, because it's difficult enough, so you don't add some other difficulties. Okay, this is also something from an international OD project. We had a contract. There's one guy missing. Yes, we had a contract on. No, I started it another way. Germany, France, and Korea started a development of a helicopter, and we were asked to accompany this project. And and I worked with a French colleague, 2 French colleagues, and 2 Korean colleagues, and 2 other Germans. And we decided to make it the other way around. Not that the project directors explain the organization of the project, but we collected in the 70 person working on the project the questions they had about the project. Okay? And then we helped the directors to find answers. So it's the other way around. And here is a session of the answering of the directors to the questions of their guys. Okay? From the beginning on, it changed completely the way how they spoke to each other. Okay? Our problems was the human resources department. Did never understand what we do.
And what is the training result?
No, we enter every time. We don't enter through human resources department usually, because then it ends in training and never in OD consultancy.
May I ask you something about the questions? Did you give a kind of a frame, or you just give me your questions on the project?
No, the first step was, we tried to formulate it in another way. Kannst du mir helfen? Was sind denn deine quälenden Fragen zum Projekt? What are your
pain points?
Yes, what are your pain points in the project you are going to work in? What did you hear about the organization of the project? You will be next month. And questions like this. So some open and half open. Okay? But it depends, and developing this question is a hard work. Okay? Because we are experienced and we ask how did we do last time in Sri Lanka and so on, but every time it has to be new. Okay? This is we ask them also what is your role in the context in the organization. Okay, this is okay. You know this kind of work probably all. No? What is your role in the organization and how much time will it take? And sometimes we make diagrams, which is funny in France and Germany, because what in France is a diagram de camembert is in German cake diagram, which tells you something about the 2 cultures. Okay?
Yeah. Can you say something more about the context when you use this chart?
It will come in the next. We asked the Europeans, each European, what do you think is your role in this organization?
And they write?
No, no.
Or is pre-prepared? It's the names of the...
No, we made a first session and we asked them what can be roles, and then we asked people, this was given to everybody at the end, and say, yourself, fill it in. Okay? And then started something very funny, in inverted commas, very funny. Discussion with the Korean project leader about my place in the organization. And this we needed, and we took it by video, and we exploited the videos, and we worked 3 days on this subject. 3 days. What is my place in the organization? Yes, one thing was, for instance, that they had a pre-idea that the Koreans are not very skilled in techniques. And the question was, it was complicated because the Europeans didn't find very skilled people to send in this organization. And to the Koreans who pay for the Europeans, the profile sold was very experienced engineer in this of the helicopter, in this of the helicopter, and this of the helicopter, but they didn't find people who wanted to go experienced, only young people of 25 who wanted to go abroad. Okay, sure. Because anyway, in Marseille and in Donauwörth, they're extremely high paid, so there's no need for money to go abroad. Okay? So they didn't find the profile they wanted, and the people like those here, they didn't know a lot what will happen in Korea, and their pre-idea was that the Koreans are not very skilled, which was not true. Koreans studied in US, aerodynamics and things like that, and they worked in aerospace industry like the Europeans. It was only common project for political reason, but not because the Europeans are better in technology of helicopter. This was not the subject. So the role situation was not clear. Will I be a teacher as a European in this thing? Will I be somebody to learn? That's why we ask those things here. Who will you be in this project and in this organization, okay? And they each of those people tried to define a position, and then they negotiated it with the Korean project leader. But this lady is not the Korean project leader, it's one of our colleagues. Okay?
And the other man?
This one is a French one, and this also is a French one. It was funny because there were a lot of French engineers who studied in Munich. And we asked them, why did you study all in Munich? And they said, I don't go in a French technical high university, because it means 4 years I do only work. And in Munich, we have been told that in the winter you ski, in the summer you are on the Ammersee, and so on, which was true. As they said, we don't study in France. It's foolish to study in France techniques. Okay. And it was difficult, and we tried them. And here we did something intercultural in a certain sense, because years ago, in former times, I was a trainer of the trainers in intercultural things. In the video exploitation, we asked people. For instance, this lady, we asked her, what did you want to produce in your Korean discussion partner? And she said, for instance, and we asked the Korean, what did she produce in you with her intervention? And then began a dialogue, how to dialogue with Koreans. Okay? Not intercultural theory and Koreans are like this and others are like this, clong, clong, clong. We have all this. This is not our problem. We have all this stuff. But we try to make it as a dialogue and to do it also as a stimulus-response thing, and not as a theory, Chinese are like this, others are like this. This is useless, okay? And it brings you to a false direction of thinking and of attitude.
Can I just ask a question there?
Yes, go ahead.
So you said after the conversation, you asked her, what did you want to produce in...
No, we looked in the video and we said, we stop after a few sequences and we say, what did you produce with this intervention in front of your Korean colleague? And then the French lady said, I wanted to produce this and so on. And we asked the Korean, what happened? What did this reaction produce?
Right. I understood that. My question is, what was the very beginning? What was the question the French girl asked, or what was the context?
I don't know. I don't remember.
Didn't matter.
No, because it was it took 1 hour. This negotiation. It took 1 hour, and the video exploitation we needed 2 or 2.5 hours. Yeah? And we asked the others in the room what would have been an alternative if you want to produce this in your Korean project leader. What could have been an alternative in your way of approaching him or her? Okay, so they learned themselves to think, what can I do in the dialogue with my Korean partner?
Thank you.
Okay. Was it an answer? Okay. And then we did something extremely, one of the best ideas we had. But it took us 2 nights to find it out in this way. We asked the project team to go outside in the yard of the hotel, and we produced this cross in the yard. On one side, why do you go in this project or in this organization? To build a perfect helicopter? To learn how to work and to live in a foreign culture? What will be important for you, risk and innovation, or stay on the safe side of the road, regulations, certainty? Because our preconcept was, if you have a helicopter with a technical problem, you can't go on the right side of the road and say, stop, I call the ADAC. Okay, I call the German help office for broken cars, but if you are in the air, helicopter has to work. Okay, and we asked the people, and then our next question was, why do you stand in this quadrant? We ask everybody. How do you see the occupants of the other quadrants? Who would you like to push to another position? Can the organization, the whole constellation we have here, can it be successful? And everybody said to the last question, no. If we stand like this in this quadrant, it will never be a helicopter. Okay? And we asked them, what does it mean for your organization?
The question here, were they distributed evenly or completely to one side or the other? I mean,
no, it gave a big movement. We thought it will take 1 hour, and we started at 11 o'clock, and we had difficulty to finish in the evening.
no, but I mean, when they first placed themselves,
Yes.
were they all on one side or the other, or were they evenly spread out?
No, they were standing. This is a real position they took. There was somebody on this side, some people here, 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 some here, and so on. They were distributed in the whole nature. I don't tell you where the bosses were situated, because it was really, you couldn't imagine how leadership can take such a position.
Yeah, all the 4
Quadrants, yeah.
streams
Yeah.
are legitimate, because I see legitimate to build the
Yes.
3 of them, but the 4th on the south,
This one here?
yeah, how can it be admitted openly? I mean, socially it looks,
No, there were people who took this position.
they accepted.
Yes, they took this
And-
position.
And what about the
Not the
other?
bosses. And they were exactly the subject you submitted now. It was discussed. What is legitimate?
Okay.
What is a legitimate position? And the other one was, I pushed it every time, can you build a helicopter with this distribution in the room? Because they are paid to produce a helicopter. Okay? One question was legitimate. What do you think about the others? Okay? And interesting was the discussion then, in the first time, I take, for instance, I take this position, but in 1 year, I think I'll be here. This was also an interesting discussion. And people try to push others and say, I don't see you here. You have to be here. I know you. This is not a good place for you.
It's not representative. It's not perfect. It's not.
No, there is no perfection.
It's not correct. So it doesn't describe you.
No. For me, it's not a question of. I try to avoid, even if I think so, what, on my opinion, would be the best organization. I try to avoid this.
No,
And when they ask me, I don't answer. No, Gianfranco.
No, I was saying something else, but.
No, go ahead.
No, I mean, if I see that you position yourself in the risk innovation business,
Okay.
and I say, but it is not true, should I tell it? I mean, people were allowed to tell it?
Yes, you were allowed.
Okay.
No, everybody
Okay.
was. The first question, why?
To give feedback,
Why do you
I mean.
stay? Yes. First question was, why do you choose this position? Okay. First we asked the people, and then started the.
Okay.
Okay, I have to hurry now.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, this is also business theater. We asked people in the same finance board I showed you before. We asked a business theater group from Munich to take part in the sessions of the leading group. And we had a 3 days workshop on what is the next step in the organization, and we asked the theater group to replay what they saw as a meeting before. And believe me, it was a hard work for 3 days, also for me. Okay, because when the people saw how they behave in their meetings, but it was also because they have confidence in me that I don't do it as a game and that they know me and I know we discussed it with the boss what we're going to do. It didn't came from the moon and it was commonly decided. Okay, this is also what I call an exercise. It's with an egg, they have to place an egg, and it was the integration of two boards in Airbus. They have been asked to help them to integrate. They came from two separate organizations, and now they had to integrate in one organization.
And what was the egg?
The egg?
about?
No, the egg was to place. The egg was, there were people, it was partly about leadership. Those people couldn't see anything, but they had this string, and the others had to tell them where they have to go. And the subject was to place the egg on something you can't see here. There was kind of a little thing where they had to place the egg, and then we changed the roles.
Okay.
The blind one became the others, and so on. And it was a long discussion about leadership without knowing everything, and how, because they were convinced that they will never know everything. They will never have all the things they need for decision. This was, and it was clear that they had to accept it, otherwise they can't work. Okay? And it was also a long discussion about sameness and difference in this group. A long discussion. Okay, I give it up. Now, this is something, perhaps, what we try and work every time is we find a decision what we're going to do, okay, with the group, with the organization, and then we start. We have primary objectives, we have a contract, we have methods. We start to work, okay? And in a certain situation, we try and conclude, okay, to come to the point. And when I work with a management board or something like this, I have every time a flip chart in parallel where we take the decisions, okay? Decisions, what can we decide on, what we discussed now, and so on. So it's closed on a certain moment, and then we open again. This is my primary idea, how I work with those groups. Okay, open, work on it, close it, and perhaps go to somewhere else. Okay?
So at what point do you close it? So how do you know this?
Sometimes one point is a time. Okay, when I know I have 1 day, 2 day, or 3 day in this step, because as I told you, there are several steps. I have two manivelle, yes. One is the time, and the other one is the deepness. Okay, and I adjust every time, and I tell every time the boss. First, there is no phone in the so-called recreations. Doesn't exist. They don't phone. They need the time to digest. Okay, there is not the time. I don't accept that they transform the so-called recreations in the real work, and the time with me is the recreation. Not with me. Okay, and what is every time with the boss and with all people, I ask every time the same question: where are we now? Are we still on the track? What can be the next step? What are the subjects who came up and we have to work on? So it's every time a kind of adjustment, okay, with the group and especially with the boss. The boss knows, in this case, the finance board, the Australian guy, he knows that he will not eat with his people in the evenings, that we're going to eat separately, and we discuss what happened today and what we're going to tomorrow, and how did he play his role, how did I play my role, what has to be adjusted, and if we are a team, we do this together. And so when we work together, we need at least, no, not at least, sometimes we need the same time for our adjustment, and the adjustment with our client, then we are with the group. Okay? And it's also a kind of feeling where they are, you see, and most of time I am not out of the box. Most of time I know what happens, but I adjust it every time. Every time I ask, where are you now? What is preoccupying you? And I say, in your face, I see that there is something more. You didn't tell me up to now, please tell me. Okay? Okay, lessons learned. Very difficult to branch into the road of OD when you enter through the training door in an organization. Doesn't work. One of the first things I learned when I started with OD. Okay. The consultant team is more or less a subtle mirror of the national conflicts in the client system. We have difficult experiences in this. Huh? Yeah.
Interesting.
Yes. Interesting, but we suffered sometimes. Because I was so angry against him and he was angry against me.
So do you have any process for shadow consulting or supervising the consultant team?
Yes. Yes.
Work with the parallel process?
Yes. Yes, we have.
Did you hear about that?
Not every time, but sometimes.
Right.
Okay, and we take, and this is one of the subjects I will show you. It will come in a few minutes. Be specific as an OD consultant, also in your wordings. Do not use words like tools, modules, intercultural seminar, training. They are misleading and come from another professional context. Okay? I have it on a sheet of paper. You will receive it in a few seconds. Keep the responsibility for the development of the process and refuse the responsibility for contents. You are an expert, but an expert for the process, and not for finance or something else. When I started my training as a trainee in coaching, there was every time a debate in Germany, Feldkompetenz. Can you coach a priest without having been a priest in your life? And when I started my OD learning in Münster, in one module they asked me, with which organization you had never to do up to now? I said, with church. He said, okay, tomorrow at 9 with the bishop. And me and two others, we were obliged to analyze the organization of the bishop in Münster. So, okay. To accept a mixture of training and consultancy is high risk. Okay. Be clear on your role, flexible on the contract, and accept that doing an OD project contracting is ongoing. Okay, because when something happens, you have to discuss in a new way what is now important. The consultant team needs a lot of time to reflect what happens, what would be your next best intervention. Foresee sufficient time in the contract for international team meetings and for new adjustments. Okay, it's much more time and energy consuming than in a national context. Invest in a long-lasting cooperation with your colleagues from abroad, but give up early when you notice that the professional identity, attitude and behavior have little perspective to become fruitful. Give it up. Huh? Like they say in Africa, you can put a piece of wood as long as you want in water, it will never become a crocodile. End. Okay, now you are supposed to go in groups. The question for the groups are, how does this correspond with your own practice? What would you like to explore further? And then we come back and share what you discussed in groups. Okay?
Okay.
How long? What time is it now?
5 questions.
Yes.
So long.
Yes, but we can discuss along those two questions now. I will not be obliged to respond every time. It's also your time of sharing between yourselves.
Then we make practical questions, very practical. Like, you use these
Wooden pieces.
wooden pieces.
10,000 euros. We have wooden pieces for 10,000 euros. Believe me.
Where? Where are they available?
They are no more available. They were produced in the Czech Republic in the time of socialism. And now if you want to pay, if you want to buy it, you have the choice. The technical procedure is each piece is done by each piece, very expensive. There is a metal piece being used as a model for all the others, and then they will ask you to make thousands per size. You have the choice between pest and cholera.
We use small animals of every kind, for example.
I don't use it because it gives too much idea. Because those ones are very neutral, extremely neutral. See, we made this. We tried all these things, okay, and we use only very neutral ones, different sizes. We use also podest. We use strings. We give the people the whole stuff, but the neutral stuff. Because, and all the questions they do, should we produce an organigram? I said, only answer is no. Okay, which is difficult in Africa because they think every time in France at the beginning. So, and now, it's your choice, but we don't do animals because it's also the question, you know all the theories that in each group you have a lion, you have a mouse and things like that. And we don't want to bring people in this thinking. We want to use very neutral so that all the fantasies they have about, and you see when the vernissage starts, you can't imagine what people say in what others produced. Okay? Sometimes the people who produce something, they think it's clear and it's nothing clear for the others, or the reverse. See? And for instance, I don't want, when one question is also, should I produce the central point of organization where we are, or should we produce the whole organization? No answer from my side. Because the result shows what they think about organization. And this is the same reason why we don't work with pieces like smile or not smile and all those things, not with me.
2 questions more. Can I?
Yes,
I'm stealing the time, am I? Okay.
Do you make coaching as part of the intervention? There is some coaching, individual coaching, I mean?
Yes, but it depends how role conscious is the people I should coach. It is a long discussion in our group. We have this discussion too. We had one of our last, we had a very complex, no, not very complex, but conflictual organization. And we both made the interviews with the 4 leading persons. And our proposal at the end was that first, we both together coach this leading team. I coach alone the boss, and he coaches the 2 main conflict partners. But we made it in a classical OD way. On 3 Metaplan tables, we showed how we perceived the organization through our interviews. And they said, oh, beautiful diagnostic. We said, shit, it's not diagnostic, it's our perception. It's up to you to make the diagnostic. It's not our job. We are not McKinsey, we don't make diagnostics. And we don't give you an action plan. Because the next question was, what is the action plan? We said, thank you, go to McKinsey, not with us. Okay? And our proposal was, because it was our reflection on what we saw in the organization, that coaching was one of the needs they had. The boss, as we perceived him, needed to be coached in his boss role, because it was very difficult for him to be a boss.
Okay.
So,
Question. What are the kind of needs as a reason for asking you to help?
it depends. This
Change is implied, something to change.
It's completely different. In this case, where we worked together, it was because they suffered. All 4 suffered deeply. And they need a suffering from 1 year before they came to us. They had
And
1
they
year
asked you
suffering.
what? What did they ask you?
To help them in the conflict.
There was a conflict,
Okay.
and they had an idea of the solution. Coach these 2 people in conflict and
That's
make
all.
them they are quiet and
the problem
peaceful.
will be
This
solved.
was, and then on another level, systemically, it was not the problem of the persons.
Okay.
In reality.
Anyway,
No,
there
they
was
came to us with this-
something to improve is
No, they came to us and had a question.
the basic need is something to improve,
Yes.
Yes,
to
but-
change.
Yes,
No,
and
but-
in the same case, it was not painful enough because I didn't want us to go to the end of the process. Because when we said in the process at this time there is a problem with the mothers, with the structure, with the identity
Was
of the
joint
joint venture, we have to go further. And the mothers said, oh, we are successful on the market. We are earning a lot of money. We don't want to touch that. And the pain goes on, and the people are going.
They left.
Yeah.
All 4 left. And in other cases, for instance, when we had in a joint venture, we said our analysis was it's not possible to solve it with the management of the joint venture, and we went to the 2 mothers. And the mothers didn't like our coming because they said, we pay those people to solve the problem. And we said, they can't solve the problem. The problem is on your conflict level between the 2 mothers. You see? But they came back to us. We work with them in 2 weeks again. And no, this kind of, when they ask us, you have a conflict, can you come and solve this conflict? My normal answer is, perhaps this is your perception of what is, but I am OD consultant, we are OD consultants, we first want to know and understand your organization. Sometimes I get the answer, I don't pay you to understand my organization.
You give an open-end proposal in terms of time.
No, we said the following
Or-
steps. We start with the following steps.
Okay.
We sell steps. We say 3 steps, 4 steps, 5 steps,
Okay.
and then we discuss again a new contract. It's like I showed you with opening,
You
closing.
describe what you will have at the end of each step.
More or less, sometimes it depends. It depends.
Or at
Sometimes
the end of the 4 steps.
no. Sometimes in the contract is written we try and understand the organization, we come back to the organization with our understanding, we present this to the organization, and then we look what could be the next steps. Point. Full stop. We are OD consultants. This is our identity. And we lose a lot of contract because of this. But it's like this.
Michael, why you are so strict with the theme that you say you have to choose to be an organization developer or you have to support training things? Why you are so strict? Because I think it should be a sowohl als auch. I don't know the English word. Maybe sowohl als auch.
No.
Both. It should be both.
Yes.
But not in your person, in the same person.
Okay, we have clients where people of our consultancy group make also training. But it has to be separated with the people doing it.
I agree.
In this case, it's okay. But in the moment we are discussing to stop this, because we made a lot of mixture. With Airbus, for instance, we made for 850 engineers a program from engineer to leadership. Yes, during 4 years, 5, 6 years ago. And we had this kind of mixture, and we tried to do something we do in training. We work as a consultant in the training, if you know what it is, which means you don't give answers, but you bring people to work, okay? And sometimes it worked with Airbus, it worked. More or less, but even it worked with most of the people. And then we started it with automotive industry, give it up. They want to make at the end of day, like in Facebook, this or this. When you ask them, what did you learn today, they answer you, the trainer did not work enough, or things like this. And this is, I don't think if it's, and for the moment we are with one client where we make a lot of OD consultancy and a lot of coaching. It's a client, and it has a big advantage because the client is 80 kilometers from us, which is a big thing. No flight to Malaysia, to Toulouse.
It's more effective when it's...
No hotel. So it's very beautiful. And we make training on, in German, the training, it was wirksam führen, to lead with... Sorry? Yes, to work, to lead effectively. And they still are, we had five groups. The first one worked very well, the second worked very well, and the third every time said, give us more tools, give us more easy tools, your approach is too complicated, you challenge us, and we want to challenge you, and things like that. And if it goes on like this, we stop it. Because I work in the same organization, and leadership is their major problem. And I work on some levels in leadership, and the training are for the stratus, lower stratus, and it works with engineers, but it does not work with marketing, Vertrieb, and all those people. It works with engineers, because engineers, I like to work with engineers. In Airbus, it was a real pleasure. I told them I am zero in airplane construction and so on, and they said, we are zero in organization, but we have not the right to tell you. I said, okay, this is a good mixture. I can help you in your field, and
they can help you.
no, and I said, I hope you trust us. We trust you that you. No, and there were funny sessions with these engineers. For instance, in one session, they said. I said, for therapeutic reason, nobody of you touches metal in the next 3 months. And they started, whoa, in the room, it's impossible, we are engineers and so on. And I said, no, stop this, you are project leaders, you have 300 people to lead. It's not your job to touch metal. And I told them, if you want to produce a plane, go to the micro system where they build planes for children. And 1 year after, I met one in Toulouse, a German, and he said it was the best consultancy I ever had, because I'm the president of the Little Plane Association of Toulouse, and when I know something happening in another Airbus factory, I ask my colleague, but not my official colleague. I ask the colleague of the Little Plane construction, and he gives me everything I want as information. No. Sorry, I speak too much. So. You have question? Sorry. No, you want to add something? No? Habe ich euch auf den Boden gedrückt?
Have you done live sculpting with the team?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I'm originally trained psychodynamic, and a lot of it
Yes.
is to get to work with teams, which is very different than doing it as a kind of constellation. I wondered what your approach is when you actually.
No, in team coaching, I use still psychodynamic things. For instance, like standing behind somebody, you know, and say, I think you feel like this, and you would like to say to this person this one, and I explain what it is. I still use things like that, but for the moment we rather work in fields like that. With the method we are. But in the next phase, I'm only 68, so perhaps in the next phase.
That's because one of the things, rather than have somebody sculpt the group, I actually get the group to sculpt itself.
Yes.
So I get them to find objects that represent the heart of this team, and then I get them to place themselves where they are, in the centre, next to who they're close to, away from. So the dynamic is sculpting the group.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then that is very powerful, because then I get them to say what they're aware of, what they experience that position, and then they can try out moves.
Yes, we do it. And for instance, I remember in a team, the last team I worked with, method, I asked them, but they were a team where they had confidence in me, and they knew, and I knew that it's possible to do this.
Yeah.
I asked them to take a position in the room. I put the leader in the middle, and I asked people to take a position in comparison to him. And I remember that he said to his finance guy, "Go away, you're too much near to me."
But interesting, I would never place the leader, because when I've done it, the leader doesn't always end up as the person at the centre. So I get the team in silence to place in the middle what they think is at the heart of the team as objects.
You're right.
From just around the room.
From anything they can find in the
You're
room,
right.
the garden, or whatever.
Yes.
So they create that, and then place themselves.
Yes.
Because it's interesting. You know, I've had leaders that discovered things that supposedly no one knew. Like the leader was halfway out the door, or the leader was lying under the. They were putting in the middle.
Yes, but sculpture has also to do in some cultures with how you can touch people or not, you see. And if you do it in a way that people keep distance, it's okay. But I don't know. Would you do this in France, where people touch each other? I know that you are also a tango teacher, but this is something different. No. I have an international room.
I have got it with people from the Middle East, French,
yes,
Russians, Asians. But we don't necessarily use touch, because the instruction says place yourself as near to people you're near or away. And so the touch is left to the group, and so the culture emerges naturally.
No, you are completely right. We don't use it for the moment, but it's a very good possibility. You are completely right.
Well, I like the way. I really like the way you are using it. And what I don't do, which you do, which I think is really interesting, is these fishbowl of working with someone live in front of the team, which I think has some very rich possibilities.
Yes, but we choose, we don't do something by ideology, you see.
Yeah.
We try and understand, and we sit together and ask what can be, what makes what is sensible for this group or for this person. See?
How long have you been working together?
We do.
Yes.
How long?
How long have you been
12.
cooperating?
12 years.
12 years, I would say.
4 years? 12. 12.
That's right. And we invest a lot. He is here. Next week I'll be in Paris. The following week we work together for a joint venture in Switzerland, a German-French joint venture. But this is also something I work with him also because he has a lot of work experience in France, you see. And I think, but at the beginning when I was young, I was used to people working every time in international context, and then I gave it up because according to my experience, you need somebody who has in one context at least a deep working experience. And he has a lot of very deep experience in France, and he still works in France, and I still work in Germany. But we exchange about this, you see.
Excuse me, I don't know your name.
Jan.
Jan.
Yeah.
Where are you from?
From Paris. From Paris.
Ah, you are from Paris.
Parigi.
You're French.
Yes.
Ah, okay. Very good English.
Thank you.
For a French.
But I think there's a good principle there, which is, I think, also a good sustainability principle, that you should never fly in two international consultants. At least one should be local.
Yeah.
And not flying in. Because I think it is, as soon as you have two flying in, it is colonialistic. As well as bad for the environment.
Well, and I worked in Africa for some years, and then in different roles, director of a solar project and things like that, and also political consultancy. Yeah. And one of the reasons why I became OD consultant was that I understood in Africa that when I was a political consultant, I was supposed to help the people to develop a political strategy. And I noticed that it's useless, because anyway they will never transform it in reality. See, if it is a leftist, the right one, it's useless. And I said, the problem is organization. The problem is organization. And I came back to Europe and I asked others, with others together, where can I learn OD? And they said, go to Gordon Lawrence, Burkhard Sievers, and people like this.